moving on to the hurling, Matt, and it would have been. I think it's fair to say there was huge excitement around even Limerick City on Saturday evening for the arrival of Clare. Last year, we obviously had that epic saga of the draw in the league, the draw in the Munster round robin, technically a draw in the Munster final, and Limerick win in extra time. And it seemed to be going towards a collision course, not Ireland final. Obviously, Kilkenny had something to say about that, but we didn't get the game we were expecting at all in the Gaelic Grounds on Saturday night. Limerick were very good and Clare were very poor. I think it's fair to say. Never really raised the gallop against Limerick. Micheál Houlihan scored after 15 seconds, and Gerard Hegarty, Cian Lynch, and Kyle Hayes added to that shortly after. And Clare never came within touching distance. It was only 6 points in the end, but it was a 6 point drubbing.
It was a 6 point drubbing, and I think the message that I took out of it anyway, was that how much further down the road Limerick are in terms of preparation at this stage this year than they were possibly last year or the year before. And, all right, it was probably simplistic to say that Limerick were at their best and Clare didn't show up at all. And we were hoping that we would get something akin to last year's Munster final. And but you must remember that after the Munster final, Clare went off track a small bit, struggled to get over Wexford, and then had that semi-final defeat to Kilkenny. And you just wonder to what degree have they recovered. All right, there are two of their main players, Tony Kelly and John Conlon were missing, but Limerick were missing 7 All-Stars, Jack. Yeah. I hear this narrative peddled all over the place. Clare were without Kelly and Conlon. Limerick were without 7 All-Stars, and they were down 9 All-Stars before the game finished. So,
Yeah, on that point, I think Tony Kelly's impact on Clare, I don't think you can quantify that. Now, I think Cian Lynch is as good as him. I think Kyle Hayes is nearly as good as him. There's a lot of Limerick players that are as good as Tony Kelly, but I think when he's on the field, Clare operate different, if you get me. He just seems to give him that huge vote of confidence. But conversely, I'd rather the 7 All-Stars than Tony Kelly every day of the week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but on that
really
very
bodes
point,
well for
Jack, his free taking wasn't missed for the simple reason that Aidan McCarthy was unerring in that regard.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think free taking is
we'll
his
just
forte.
go to show you that there will be extra potency in Clare now. That the level of dependency that was on Tony Kelly to get the scores for Clare, that will be shared out this year because Aidan McCarthy is around, and possibly Peter Duggan might recapture his best form. So
Mark Rogers, Rob Mounsey, they do have good players, Clare. I think that's fair to say.
Mark Rogers and these boys, they're good players. Dermot Ryan, very, very good players. David Fitzgerald, very, very good players. But have they enough of them is the big question.
Yeah,
and this thing has been beaten to death, but it is a fact, and we just can't lose sight of it. Limerick won the All Ireland in 2022 without Cian Lynch and Peter Casey.
I was going to say it. Clare having the chance of winning a Munster even without Tony Kelly and John Conlon, and that's no disrespect to Clare. I don't think a lot of teams, if they're missing, Kilkenny wouldn't have got to that Ireland final without TJ Reid. There's a lot of teams in that boat, but Limerick, just the sheer strength and depth means you lose a 2-time hurler of the year, and obviously there's a blow, but you have a player like Kyle Hayes that can just shift into 11 and do a different kind of job there with equally effective. And Limerick, the luxury that John Kiley has at his disposal, the quality of player they have, it's through that academy that we mentioned earlier. But for me personally, Micheál Houlihan and Adam English were the standouts on Saturday night. Micheál started as he means to go on. As I said, he scored inside 15 seconds. He had 3 from play as well inside 15 minutes. I know he went onto the freeze and he nailed those as well, but it wasn't 12 frees. You know, Aidan McCarthy scored, I think, the Bones 11 or 12 frees, but Micheál was getting them from play as well, and he was filling the boots of Tom Morrissey, which aren't easy filled. And then Adam English came in after 9 minutes. You know, he'd played an hour 2 days previously for UL, his first appearance for UL all year. He had started against Cork the previous week, but he showed no ill effects of those games. And we were talking off air about the run for the goal, not only the run, but the pass afterwards. But for me, those two boys definitely stood out.
I should look a bit. I get back to the pass. The run was absolutely magnificent. To a certain degree, it opened up again in front of him, and he absolutely maximised it with the pace that he got into the offload. Jack, this guy is only out of underage, and like the normal tendency would be for that would be to have a blast themselves, but he spotted Donegal O'Daly, and Donegal O'Daly's finish was clinical. But I want to get back to Micheál Houlihan for a while, Jack, just briefly anyway. Micheál Houlihan was one of the reasons Kilmallock were county champions in 2021, if you recall.
Yeah,
he had an absolutely magnificent year himself, and Oisin O'Reilly and Robbie Handy were probably the three players that really stood up that year. And he was absolutely outstanding. Now, his form dipped in 2022, but it dipped for a reason, that he was carrying a niggling injury all the year. And that was shown in his displays for Kilmallock as well. But now he's back. Now he's back to full fitness. Plus the fact, Jack, it wasn't in the script that he would be taking the frees. It was when David Reedy had to come off, and he had to take over the free taking. I would imagine that if David Reedy was on the field, Micheál Houlihan wouldn't be taking the frees. But Jack, the level of maturity he showed in stepping up to the frees and landing 8 of them and 4 from play, absolutely phenomenal. But you talk about Cambridge and Peter Casey, and I should look. It was marvelous to see both of them starting, and you know, in many ways, it was as if they were never away, the way they performed. But you add in Adam English, you add in Micheál Houlihan, you add in Colin Coughlin, and we haven't spoken at all about Shane O'Brien.
Yeah, I know you wanted to touch on Shane O'Brien because you said Adam English is only just out of minor 2 years ago. Shane O'Brien was minor last year. In fairness, it's crazy to see what he's doing. But we've spoke at length about Shane O'Brien the last week, so I don't want to talk about his play on the field. And I want to bring up an issue that are we going to get to a scenario in April where Shane O'Brien and Adam English have played senior championship and they can't play under 20s for Limerick, and it could be the cause of Limerick missing out, because if Cathal O'Neill played last year in All-Ireland final, Limerick would have won the 20s final. You know, there's no doubt about that. Are we going to have that scenario with Adam English and Shane O'Brien?
A possibility, Jack. A possibility from what we've seen, but they've seamlessly made the transition to senior hurling as they showed last Saturday evening. I've been saying all the time that the transition would be easy for Shane O'Brien in terms of physicality. That he has the physicality, but by God, he has some suite of hurling skills as well, Jack.
Oh yeah, and I think as well,
he's a pure nuisance to any defence. Pure
he's a
nuisance.
Brilliant hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exceptional hand. He's so well able to use his body to shield his man, and it's so often he gets the ball maybe knee height. He's just using his body to shoulder him way, gets into the hand. And I think he was fouled for 4 or 5 frees as well. So that's not shown. You know, you look at the scoreboard afterwards and you say Shane O'Brien got 2 points. You know, it's good going from a corner forward, but he could get more. You know, if he wasn't fouled, he could have got 5 or 6. Adam English got 2 from midfield as well. You know, after playing an hour for UL and scoring 5 points in that game. But I just don't want it. They're going to be a scenario
in the Premiership. Jack, those for Shane O'Brien would probably go down as assists.
Yeah, I'm not sure. In fantasy football, if you score for a free kick, whoever wins it gets an assist. But look, it's still a crucial role because frees have to be scored, but they also have to be won in the first place. But I just wanted to make the point that I would hate to see it come 2 months' time that those boys are burned or John Kiley might restrict using them because they're so key to the 20s. Just get it sorted before the championship comes around, because we can't be dealing with it again 2 years in a row and wondering what if, because it's not fair to the players and it's not fair to the management teams and all organizers. On the game
But Jack,
itself, and
before you go away from that, there was such a who-shall about that last year, and not just in Limerick but nationally. And to think that the authorities have sat and done nothing about it.
yeah, we'll be getting.
They've sat on their hands on a very anomalous situation. But of course, they sat in their hands, of course, with Kilmacud and the Glen as well. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll have to be talking about authorities in a while when we get to a college situation. But Limerick and Clare, it's hard to talk about the game because Limerick were so good, but some of it was down to Clare being so bad. And I'm sure when they meet in the Gaelic Grounds in the Munster Championship, it'll be a lot different. But the key taken for me is, and you mentioned it straight away, the difference from Limerick to 12 months ago is chalk and cheese. And it was never a case of talent, because players don't go bad overnight. I think it might have been somewhere between motivation and coming back from a holiday, and they were probably doing a lot of hard work. They seem to be gearing up nicely for this league, and Galway in 2 weeks' time, or I suppose 10 days' time, will be an interesting one for us, Matt. But we will move on.
It's very interesting. It'll be very interesting, Jack, in that if we're Limerick to win in Salt Hill, it would put them in probably pole position, and this is no disrespect to Westmeath and Wexford, put them in pole position for a league semi-final place.
Yeah, and there's so many pros and cons to get into a league final now that it's so close to Munster. But Limerick have the strength and depth to play a second string team in a league semi-final, a league final, and assume that they're going to either do well, compete, win maybe. So it'll be interesting to see the approach to Galway. We'll probably have 7 or 8 Ireland winning team, and then 7 or 8 lads on the fringes. And so far, so good from the fringe players. They've taken their opportunity with a plan, and long may that continue.